Okay guys, we're at Pinson Mounds State Archaeological area here tonight for a hayride. So let's go in and take a look. Grand entry. And we have a park house being constructed here, it looks like. There's the maintenance area. We are going to the museum. There's a group camp area only. There are no individual RV sites and so forth. It is a group camp area only. Museum. All right. All right, let's go see what we can find.
Have any of y'all ever been here before? Well, I drove in here yesterday just to see where I was going. All right, so we're going to talk about the people that built the site, a couple of the histories of the site, as well as some archaeological studies that have been done here. So as we go around, we're going to see some of the mounds today. We won't get to see a whole lot of them, but we will get to see some. Hopefully we'll see some deer and some animals. We saw some armadillos and a baby deer yesterday, so we'll see what we see. That one's more comfy too because you got a backrest.
I can just see myself fall.
So we've got one person that moved here from California. Where else is everybody from?
Nashville.
Nashville? You had a good little drive too. Yeah. Where y'all from? Ridgely? Yeah, y'all ain't too far at all then. Where y'all from? And you? Oh, perfect. So we got some locals and some out-of-town folk. Good.
No, I'm a Tennessean now. I got a license.
Good, good. Cute puppy.
That's good.
Thanks. This is my fiance, so that's why he's taking pictures of me.
I was just gonna let them think I was some creepy dude at home.
You are some creepy. So, some of you got the pleasure of actually getting to go inside the museum right before it closed. So this is not a mound that the Navy's built. We built it. It's pretty much a concrete bunker with dirt on the sides of it. That way it kind of goes into the place and kind of fits in well. It also kind of gives you an idea of scale. Once you go inside, you get to see some of the artifacts, how big the place is, and it's a lot smaller than a lot of the mounds you're going to get to see today.
Now, what's the hours for that?
8 to 4:30, and then on Sunday it's 1 to 4:30. And we're open, the park's open 365 days of the year. The museum is closed state holidays, and then on Thanksgiving and Christmas as well. We like to give our staff a little break. So this site was created by some Native Americans that were here over 2,000 years ago. So that time scale, if you think about the Roman Empire, was at its height when this place was being built. So that's how old it is. The people, we grouped them into a time frame called the woodland period of Native Americans. So people ask us all the time, like, what tribes were here? We really can't tell you because tribes didn't even develop until around 500 years ago. Like I said, it's over 2,000 years old. So there's a big gap of time. We refer to that as the Middle Woodland period. And these people were mound builders of the southeastern United States. There are several mounds throughout the country, and there's probably 80 to 70,000 mounds in the southeastern United States. Some of them have been degraded and destroyed over time, but places like Pinson still hold those places in protection and telling the story of the people. So behind me, we're coming up on one of the largest mounds in the United States itself, and the largest mound on the complex, Saul's Mound. This mound was named after the people that owned the property before the state bought it, because they took such good care of the site. They didn't plow over the mounds, they didn't hurt the big mound. They pretty much agriculturalized this area down in here and kind of stayed away from the mounds and protected them. This mound, we don't know a whole lot about it, and you're going to hear me repeat that with some of the mounds we're going to see today. We only know about 20 feet down into that mound. We only have a small core sample, which is a cylinder of dirt 20 feet down. Like I said, it's 72 feet tall, so that's a lot we don't know about. Those layers that we do know were created kind of like a cake, a layered cake, with the thicker layers being dirt and the smaller, thinner layers being caps of sand. We have 3 different colored sands here, and they're all part of the McNary sand that's about 6 feet under us right now. They can be white, and depending on how much iron content that the sand got exposed to, it could be orange or bright red. So there's some beautiful colors in these mounds. And they would have been either painted with nothing growing on them, or they would have been capped with clay. So they weren't just green and brown at the time the natives were here, they were all bright colors. Now as we go along this tour, feel free to kind of stop me and ask questions.
Are these like burial mounds?
So we do have some burial mounds here. We will be going past one burial mound today, but our main burial mound is on the western side of the park, and it's twin mound. It's a double conical mound, which it means it's just 2 round mounds put together. Most of the mounds that we have here are flat top mounds like Saul's and Osier here. If you look at the mound, you can see that there's kind of corners at the top. Those corners line up with the 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And when you're standing on top of Saul's here, the other mounds in the vicinity line up with celestial events such as sunrises and moonrises. And it makes this whole complex a huge ecological calendar. So you can tell the time based off of the mounds here when you're standing on top of this one.
I thought I saw Ollie a second ago.
Now as we're driving around, kind of keep an eye open some of the trees. We do have a barred owl that hangs out and hunts the mound for mice and stuff. So she's pretty active this time of the year. I saw her yesterday. Mm-hmm. Did you give her a name? Yep, her name's Ollie. She actually built a nest really close to the road with her mate.
The park's open all year round because
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So the park is open every single day of the year. Just the museum, some holidays and stuff, we shut it down for our staff members.
Y'all supposed to tar the park down there.
Now in January and February, we shut the boardwalk down. And that's just because of duck season, because it's on the river. We don't want anybody to get hurt or anything.
I wondered why.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, you'll see on this sign coming up the dates that it's closed. So if you follow this trail down, you'll actually hit that duck's nest that we were talking about. And it leads down to the South Fork of the Forked Deer River. It's a big mouthful for a river name. But that was their highway. They wouldn't have used roads. They wouldn't have come into the site like you guys did today on the road. They would have actually come in from the south and come up that corridor. We're coming up on our next mound right over here. It's mound number 10. So this mound is in a teardrop shape, and we're going to be passing the point of it just in just a second. It is also pointing at another mound right over here, mound 17. Now we don't know a whole lot about mound 17, and you can't really see it that well. That's because over time it has been plowed over and flattened. When the settlers first got here, there were old growth trees here. And they actually would log them off and use them as houses, other materials. But when you're done logging, what's left is open ground. Open ground's great for farming. So I don't blame the settlers that destroyed the mounds. They didn't know what they were. They knew they were Indian mounds, but they didn't understand the significance. And they were just trying to put food on their tables for their families. Now this little cluster of trees that's kind of behind y'all now, that was a crematory site. So that is actually where they would actually burn some of their loved ones that were passed away. Every single mound on the site has some form of human ash in it. That's why this site is sacred if we don't walk on the mounds. Some of them though are just ceremonial. But just like today, if we cremate a loved one, we usually keep their ashes in a special spot, or we take their ashes and deposit them in a special place. This would have been their most sacred site, and to become a part of the site would have been the highest honor for their society.
They didn't live here.
No, so there was never an occupational site here full time. We did have seasonal occupation, so they had seasonal residences on the site, but it was never a full-time settlement. For lack of better terms, it would be kind of like Jerusalem is to the Jews of old time.
How many miles is this trail?
So the trails all together, we have around 7 miles of trails, and it's 5 of that which are paved. So we have a lot of access for paved trails for bicycles, wheelchairs. We just added another half mile of trails on our western section too that's not on the map yet. Now today we're just going to go about a mile. We do golf cart tours that do 6 total miles, and we cover a lot more ground than we are today.
You have to have your own golf cart?
No, so we provide, it's a 6-seater golf cart, and you go out with me or Mr. Michael, and we tell you the story of the site.
It'd be pretty neat to go all of it.
Yeah, it's really fun actually. It's one of my favorite things to do with people.
When do they do that?
So we do them in the spring and fall. So you can usually call, we'll have them pre-scheduled, or you can call and say, hey, I've got some family members, or I myself would like to take part in a tour, and we can schedule one for you.
The Oktoberfest, is that what it's called that y'all just had?
Our Archaeofest.
Archaeofest.
Yeah, so it's a celebration of archaeology and the natives that built the site. This year we had over 10,000 people attend that event this year. Yeah, it was a lot for this little bitty park for sure, but it was a really good event. Now, as y'all can see, we do have a lot of open fields here. This is the way it would have looked when the natives were here. There wouldn't have been a whole lot of trees here at all because it was an open grassland or a savanna. We had our own Tennessee prairies here. So we are trying to reclaim that and put our natural habitat back into these open prairies. And it's really benefiting us because we're seeing a lot more wildlife take advantage of that. As you see when we drive around, we've got a lot more bluebird boxes out here. So the wildlife love these open prairies and these extra habitats here.
Do you guys have an explanation of why there's a bunch of females out there?
Mm-hmm. So we have a group of farmers, they're both brothers, and they come out and cut the hay for us so that we don't have to bush hog the prairies. And that makes it to where the natural plants grow better. And it saves us a bunch of money as well because we're kind of a business. Before gas and diesel got so high, it was saving us $10,000 a year. So you can just imagine what it's saving us now. And then for
the hay.
For their payment, they get to take the hay.
That's a good deal for them.
Yeah, they got, let's see, the spring cut, they got 769 bales off of us. I think it's around another 750 or so this time. Yeah, no, it's great for them.
Yeah, because they can sell each one of those for about $300.
Yeah, yeah, but it takes it off of us having to do it. It probably will, it saves us $10,000 in diesel, but you got to think about the manpower. And it's 145 acres we have to bush hog to cut if we didn't have these guys helping us out. And there's only
California, what's that on?
okay, so bush hog,
Like
that's
a
fine.
mower, big old mower.
Yeah, it's a huge. It's a 16-foot mower pretty much, and we just cut everything.
Okay.
Hey, good question.
It's just a big old mower.
Yep. So if you guys kind of look off into the woods, you'll start to see some drop-offs. So that is where the river is actually backed up and kind of cut away the landscape. Here in West Tennessee, this soil, like I said earlier, is very sandy. We got a lot of sand, and so it washes away really easily. But that's great for the natives because it made this great landscape for them to have.
Y'all do anything to keep it from do y'all do anything to keep it from eroding more now?
Yeah, so we let the trees grow. So that's the best way to do it, is to let those root systems kind of hold everything together. So we're coming up on another trail that kind of goes off into the woods. That heads to our eastern citadel. So a citadel is just an enclosed structure. So a lot of your buildings and stuff, that would be considered a citadel. This one is a huge circle of an earthen bank. So just a bank and a little, kind of like a dam, built out of just dirt. It encompasses about 6 acres, and what they would actually use it for is to hold water. So if you've got all these people coming to this site to celebrate and have weddings and burials and funerals, you've got to have some source of food and water. So to hold that water down there, they actually would create this little mini lake. There's also another mound inside of that as well. One of the settlers actually that rediscovered the site built his home on top of one of those mounds. If you're familiar with the area, Henderson Town, it would be the grandfather of the surname of Henderson. Just off at the end of this tree line, you can kind of see a road kind of darting into the woods there. That was an old home site here, and we actually use that for our bees. So we keep bees here on the park, and that is where we house them. If you're fortunate enough to get to go in the museum, we actually have honey that come off the park here for sale. Yeah, it is. I think that tree is really pretty. That's colored up.
I still like that.
What, just the tree?
Just all that overgrowth.
Yeah, some of it's good. It's good habitat. Cover. That's what I'm trying to think of. So we are coming up on the last mound you guys are going to get to see today. This is mound 28. It is one of the largest footprints of the mounds that we have on site. If you were to flatten this out with bulldozers, it would cover 5 football fields with dirt. So there is.
Do all that by hand.
They did it all by hand. The tools that they would use were hand shovels that usually made out of shell or some type of bone, usually deer shoulder blades. and then some kind of woven baskets about the size of your regular backpack. That's what they would use to actually move the dirt earth around. So if you can think of little bitty backpacks moving all that dirt, it was a big undertaking. This one we don't know a whole lot about. This one's never been excavated. It is 215 by 232 feet, and it is 13 to 15 foot tall depending on where you're at. Has anybody ever planted potatoes? Oh, it's a weird question.
Grandma did.
So
What's the biggest mound you had?
Saws, the first one we saw. So if you've ever planted potatoes, you know how hard they are to get up out of the ground. So what the settlers did was they actually planted potatoes on the slopes of this mound, and they would, when they were ripe, dig them up and let them roll to the base where it was a nice neat line of potatoes so they could just get them and pick them up. Very smart. So we call this one our potato mound. But that's why it was not excavated, because there was so much disturbance already at the mound. They kind of drew away and went to some of the other mounds. Today what we're focused on is the grounds themselves. So Pinson was highly mound excavated, meaning that all the focus was on the mounds. The excavations, the research, all of it was on the mounds. That leaves all of this out in here fair game. So we are trying to figure out what they were doing here on their daily basis when they were here, and trying to figure out how they were living, what they were doing on a daily basis, how were they getting so creative. Because some of the artifacts that we found here were gorgeous pieces of pottery with all kinds of designs and intricate earth carvings in them. We also have evidence of small marginella shells, which are kind of spiral shells. They're really tiny, and dresses, whole dresses, would be just covered in those shells. Thousands and thousands of shells. That was found in one of our burials.
But where were they getting the shells?
They were getting them from the Gulf Coast, is the closest place to get them.
That's what I was like, there's nothing like that around here.
So we've got artifacts from Canada, which is copper. That's the only copper mine that's at surface level that you can get to without going through bedrock. We've got obsidian from the Rocky Mountains, so that had to cross the Rocky Mountains and the Mississippi River to get to this site. So we have a lot of trade goods showing that the economy was very far stretched throughout the United States. It wasn't just a one group, one size fits all. It was a huge amount of cultural influences. We have ideas that are spreading through this culture, from the Hopewell up in Ohio, down to us in Pinson, down to South America. Y'all look, you can barely see the platform. It's going behind the tree now from Saul, so we're making a huge circle. So yeah, so we've got stuff from all over the country that's ended up here. Some of it was worked on here. We have a paddle, which is just like you would spank somebody with a paddle, but it had designs where you could press into the clay and it would make those kind of cool intricate patterns. The pattern originated in South Georgia, but the paddle itself was made from a wood that was only found up in northern Tennessee and Ohio. So ideas were being spread all over the country, and this was one of the central locations.
It's hard to imagine.
It really is.
Now how do these mounds, do they go cross over to the ones that are at Shiloh, or
So, okay.
on down into South Mississippi?
Yeah, so Pinson's really weird because we're the only middle woodland site that has Mississippian stuff. So when we talk about natives and prehistory, it's the Archaic, and then the Clovis, and the middle woodland, and then the Mississippians are the youngest, and they're kind of the last ones in that group. We have mounds such as the flat top mounds, which are usually strictly Mississippian, but we have dates that carbon date 1,000 to 1,500 years older than the Mississippian sites. So we know for a fact these are not Mississippians building them. So we think that this is a transition point between the two cultures, where it's kind of starting to get Mississippian ideas working into this culture. Now the Shiloh mounds are strictly Mississippian. They're actually 1,400 years younger than this site. And now there's all kinds of different sites throughout Mississippi with Mississippian and woodland structures. So just depending on what site you're talking about.
Well, I know I've been down to the mounds.
Yeah,
That's South
yep,
Mississippi.
yep. Now are those Mississippian or are they woodland? I think they're Mississippi. There's so many mound sites.
It's like number 2 on the largest in the United States.
Yeah, they have one that's 63 feet tall,
the thing is huge, and you can climb up to
Mhm.
the top of it, and it's just, I think it's the size of like 5 or 6 football fields on
Yeah.
the top.
That's crazy.
And it's just, you're like, you did all this with buckets of dirt,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing.
Cahokia, it's
right by St. Louis.
it's
I
right.
never went there.
Now,
Lived over there.
see, I haven't been there either. It's one of our bucket list kind of things, but it is the largest mound in the United States. It's 102 feet tall, but it's 1,000 years younger than this site. So that is when you're thinking about Mississippian structures, Cahokia is the prime example of Mississippian.
Now, where is that one at?
St. Louis.
Like where you get to St. Louis. East side.
Yeah, it's 102 feet tall, and it's practicing over there. We've got a gun range just across the way. But it is a tiered mound, so it's got levels, and so you can go up the levels.
Seems like that's the way Emerald Mound is.
It is.
It's just been so long since I've been there.
And see, with saws, it's just a sheer straight up and down.
Well, and I know we got Chuckalisa outside.
Chuckalisa, see, that's a Mississippian site.
Yeah, I've been, I was, yeah.
Yeah, they got some cool stuff.
Yeah. They hadn't really done anything, it was just a mound section.
Yeah, a lot of,
5 or 6 of them.
yep,
And they got a camera up there on a pole saying do not trespass.
yeah.
That's all it is.
There's nothing else there.
Doesn't tell you nothing about them, nothing at all.
Unfortunately, that's most mound sites. is
There's
like
enough
that.
place to park your car. Just so you know,
Yeah.
Well, I know my dad was a farmer, and he used to talk about all the mounds that were down there.
After a good rain.
All kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
You know, I've got friends that got big old banana boxes just full of stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just all out there everywhere.
Mhm.
On the right trail, kind of hill. Assume you might run into
So,
lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
nah.
Not here.
So, yeah, the most common things you're gonna see here are squirrels, and they can be pretty vicious, but no, they'll run away from you. Turkeys are pretty common back on that one trail, but they try to get away from you.
It's too close to Turkey now. You better get. I mean, Thanksgiving. So
I
you
know,
better run.
I know, right? But yeah, most of the time you're gonna see birds, a couple snakes maybe off on the trail, but usually not gonna see much. You're gonna have to worry about. Deer are pretty common, especially out here on the roadways and the paved trails.
If it's black and white and striped, go the other direction.
Yes.
I don't want chihuahua. That's the only difference.
Yes, armadillos are pretty common here too.
Decided to chase it one night.
Oh, no.
They migrated here.
You
Slept in the
know,
garage.
I've never seen a skunk on the park.
Follow
I haven't
the
even
fire
heard of that.
because we used to not have them, and now they are there.
Yeah, they're here, but I've just never seen them. But see, they're going to compete with the armadillos, and I see a whole bunch of armadillos here, so that's probably why we don't see a lot of skunks.
You got coyotes.
Yes. Raccoons, you think they're bears around here because they get into our trash and get fat.
Yeah. That one time a night walking, what was it? He said the owl was saying.
Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you?
He'll
All.
say that, and then that owl would.
Yep. That's the barred owl. I know, they were calling last night, but it's also been a lot of overcast today. And there's been a lot of people here. Well guys, thank y'all for coming out tonight for the Hayride and coming and spending some time with us. Let me get to talk to you. Yeah.
My first adventure.
Oh good. You'll have to come back.
I'm excited for that walk for next Saturday.
Oh cool, yeah. Mr. Michael will be leading that for us.
What kind of walk is that?
It's a nature hike.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. You can ask Mr. Michael.
To
At
2:30 or something.
Yeah, you'll have to ask Mr. Michael.
They had a nightclub at Chickasaw last year.
Mm-hmm.
Roads are paved.
We do a lot of the swamp tours down here. Oh yes. Alright guys, if you would like to go down the ramp, I will get that open for you.